Last week, I celebrated a funeral for a woman in her 70s named Peggy Madden. She'd had lots of challenges in her life. She was divorced. She had a child who struggled for years with addiction. She had lost a 29-year-old son, and she had cancer. But she always stayed positive through it all. And in talking to her family about her life in preparation for her funeral, I found out why that was. It's because when she was 3 years old, she wound up being hit by a car growing up in Queens, and it almost killed her. In fact, she had what we now would call a near-death experience. And in it, at age 3, she said she felt incredible love. And she wasn't afraid at all. And there was something in her that told her, you cannot possibly mess this up. No matter what you do, I've got you. And that became the frame that the picture of her life was in. She put her whole life in that frame, that God's love is incredible, that really there's nothing to fear, and that you can't mess it up, that it's based on God's goodness, not on ours. So you can't mess it up no matter what you do. That is what the gospel is about today. The same thing in different words. Jesus says, my sheep are mine, okay? No one takes them from me. The Father gave them to me. You can't take my sheep from me. Nothing can separate me from my sheep. That's exactly what we heard in Peggy's story. And you know, just as we say to every baptism family, we talked about that today with Kyle and Violet. We said, it's okay if you're a little nervous, you've never had children before, you've never baptized them, but just so you know, we're not going to let you mess this up. If you stand in the wrong place, it's on us. We have to move you to the right place. If you say the wrong thing, we'll prompt you so you say the right thing. We're not going to let you mess it up. And that's exactly how it is with God. Jesus says, you can't escape me. I've got you. You can't mess it up. And so how does that show up when that's the frame of your life? Well, here's how it showed up for Peggy. Her children told me she never complained. They said, Mom just refused to complain. And she had some phrases that she said a lot. One of her phrases was, God is in charge. When her kids would say, Mom, this is so hard, God is in charge, honey. Another one of her phrases was, full speed ahead. She always said that. And they remembered the day not too long ago when the oncologist gave her bad news and she was bummed out, and they saw it. And so they went over to her and they said, Mom, you doing okay? And she took a breath and she said, full speed ahead. Because the frame of her life was established. There was no changing it. That's who she was. So maybe this is a good time for us to check in. What frame is your life in? What's your frame that you look through when you're trying to figure out life? I'll tell you some of the ones I hear, and I bet some of them are familiar to you. You can't trust anybody. So you trust somebody in this world, you're going to get burned. That's a frame. How about everything is rigged against me? I can't get ahead. Everything's rigged against me. Every time I try to get ahead, somebody just rips it out from under me. That's a frame. Maybe your frame is, life stinks, and then you die. I even heard a very colorful one. One time a parishioner was telling me about some really hard stuff he was going through, and he said, Father, life is a doo-doo sandwich. You either take a bite or you starve. That is a frame. That's a frame. But you can imagine when you have a frame like one of those, how your decisions are made, how much joy you're capable of amassing. That changes things. So what do we do if we don't like the frame we have? Maybe we've been given a frame or we've adopted a frame that's not good for us. What can we do to change it? Many of you know that before I came here, I was a priest in Oneonta. And there's a lot of farms around there. And a few years ago, a family said to me, called me up on Easter and said, "Father, we just had a delivery of baby lambs. If you want to have an Easter to remember, get over here and see this. It's perfect." So I did. I went over, and there were all the lambs, just as cute as I knew they'd be. Maybe a little stinkier than I thought they were going to be, but still really good. But one of them was in the arms of the farmer the whole time. When I pulled up to the barn, the farmer was there with the lamb in his arms. And then we went into the house to eat, and the lamb went with us. And then he was letting the dogs out, and he took the lamb with him to let the dog. And I said, "So is that lamb going to be a pet?" They said, No, this is a barn animal. This isn't a pet." I said, "Why are you holding the lamb up everywhere you go?" And he said, "This is the runt of the litter. It was born with a rapid heartbeat. It almost died. It's like it's having a panic attack all the time because its heart is so erratic. So I'm holding its heart against my heart. Because if it feels my heartbeat, it'll adopt that rhythm." It turns out, I learned, that when a shepherd holds a sheep against his or her heart, their heartbeats synchronize. And I don't think I've ever heard a better definition than that one for prayer. That is what prayer is. Prayer is climbing into the shepherd's lap and resting your heart against the shepherd's heart and allowing your rhythm to match the shepherd's rhythm. That's what prayer is. So if you know somebody who says, "I pray the rosary every day," then you know someone who is allowing their heartbeat to be synchronized with God's. Maybe you or someone else you know does a very different kind of prayer. We've been talking for a few years here now about the 3 C's, the simplest kind of prayer there is. Getting up and lighting a candle and sitting with a cup of coffee or tea or cocoa and just letting the light shining speak to you. That's just as effective. It's different, but there's no way you can mess up prayer as long as you give it some time and you seek to align yourself, to rest with, to synchronize heartbeats with God. Mothers know this. This is something that is natural and instinctual for mothers. A few weeks ago, it was my birthday, and my parents sent me an electronic image of a picture that's famous in our family. It's the day they brought me home from the hospital, just 3 days old. And they were bringing me home, and they called my grandparents and said, "We'll meet you at the house. He's coming home for the first time today." So this picture is of my mom and dad coming in the garage door, and it's the first moment that they have brought their son into their home. And my grandpa snapped the shot. Can you guess where I am in that picture? You know exactly where I was. In my mother's arms, against her heart. Mothers know. They don't need to know why. They just know that's where the child belongs, against their heart. Not even realizing maybe that that's what synchronizes heartbeats. That's what puts us in a shared rhythm. So this is how we change our frame. That's how it happens. If you have a frame that's not working for you, if your frame is can't trust anybody, if your frame is everything's rigged against me, if your frame is life stinks, the way you change it is by synchronizing your heartbeat with the divine heartbeat and allowing that rhythm to set your rhythm. To do that, we have to allow ourselves to be held by God just a little bit every day. We need to sit in the shepherd's lap in whatever way works for us and allow our heartbeats to synchronize. And if we do that, there's a very good chance that we are going to have a heart that beats like Heggie's did. We're going to know that God's love is incredible. that we've got nothing to fear, and that try however we want, we can't mess it up.